Hello, everybody. I'm Randy Mills, your Sports History Now host, where we bring Kentucky's greatest sports memories alive, one story at a time. And I'm joined today by a very special friend of over 40 years, in fact. Our friendship, primarily in the sports arena, maybe I should say over 40 sports seasons of all varieties, and that is none other than Mr. Burney Jenkins. Burney is a retired educator. He spent 46 years in the teaching and also in the coaching profession. Now, of course, Burney is the mayor of Georgetown, Kentucky's sixth largest city. And especially as we talk today, Burney is among the all-time premier sports officials in our state, refereeing football, basketball, and umpiring baseball. I think maybe a little men's softball as well, for actually over 50 years giving to the youth of our state and of our country. What an amazing track record. And he's worked at the very highest level. It's so good to be with you today, Burney.
Well, thank you, Randy, for inviting me here. It's an honor. I'll tell you what, I've been a very, very blessed man, to say the least. To do all those things and all the different memories of that. I use my teaching and my sports officiating and coaching has helped prepare me as mayor, because some of those same things that you learn in those facet helps me to actually apply those skills in actually for the mayor's position. So,
absolutely. And I think when we talk about you being a blessed man, I think, if I may say so, blessings, I think, come to those especially who are givers and who think beyond themselves, as you have done throughout all the years that I've known you. So I wonder about the roots, your roots, maybe mom and dad, your hometown, how that played out. There must have been a pretty significant impact from your parents to cultivate you into the person that you've become.
Well, I grew up in Clarksville, Tennessee, and I grew up there. I was born in September 6, 1953. And during that time of the 50s and 60s, as you know, was a turbulent time for racial
Yes,
divides. And when people talk about racism, I said I lived it. Going to restrooms that were separated, drinking fountains, sitting in the back of the bus, separated schools. So I said I lived all those things, and that my parents were people who were grounded in trying to do hard work. I'm one of 11 in my family, Section 8 housing in the projects. And I was the first generation in my family to go to college or even thought about going to college. And so, I tell this story, somebody asked me, how in the world did I get to Georgetown College or Georgetown?
That was my next question.
Yes. So that being said, like I said, going through that time, ended up in 1972. I graduated from from Clarksville High School in Clarksville, Tennessee. But my parents, were ones that said, you can do whatever you want to do. But standing around Clarksville, Tennessee and doing nothing is not a good deal. So it just so happened that I went to my guidance counselor and said, I want to go to college. And she kind of looked at me during those times, they were not trying to push minorities into going to schools of higher learning.
Yes.
So she was trying to talk me out of it. And I said, well, I really want to go. I was a pretty good student, honor student, and I thought I would be very successful at that. But anyway, I said, well, I was going to go to college somewhere. So she kind of just trying to discourage me. So as I was leaving the office, I had one of these divine intervention. Something said, Burney, look down to your right. And never paid attention to it. It says, Burney, look down to your right. I looked down to my right, and there was a brochure of Georgetown College. And I picked it up, I looked at it, and I said, this is an interesting place. So I started doing some inquiring on it, and I ended up going, okay, so, and at the time I could go to Austin Peay, that's University of Tennessee, University of Memphis, Tennessee State, and all those others. And I said, this is like an interesting place. So I applied and got accepted. And July 9th, 10th, and 11th of 1972, I'm on a Greyhound bus leaving at 6:30 in the morning. That'd be clockwork time. Got here at 8:30 that night, and there were people at Georgetown College met me at the bus station here and took me over to my dorm, and that's where we started. I had never, ever in my lifetime been here to Georgetown College. That was the first time I ever in Georgetown. That's my story. And I said, people, that was a divine, God had something planned for me to be there.
Absolutely.
And this is where I'm at. But my parents always wanted me to do something other than just, I go back to Clarksville on occasions when I go referee, and I see the same people there. And I was not going to be one of those people that 20 years from later, I'm still talking about the same thing.
During your high school years, were sports or involvement in sports, was that a part of who you were?
I did football and basketball, and I ran some track. Tried a little baseball, did a little bit, wasn't very good at it. So, I was times I couldn't hit water if I fell out of a boat. So, so that's what it was.
So you get to Georgetown College. Of course, a few things that you may have thought would never happen. I mean, things happen. Of course, the day you set foot in this community for the very first time, I know you never thought you'd be mayor of the city, and we'll talk about that a little bit more maybe later. But also, as we think about these sports memories, how in the heck did the refereeing come to be? I'm just wondering, here you are, 18, 19 years old, you're a college freshman. I don't assume you refereed. Did you referee any back home? Oh, you did? Yeah. Well, let us know about kind of how that spark got started.
So, when I got to college, when I got to Georgetown in 72, I worked many jobs. I had to pay for my schooling, and so I worked on campus. I worked in the post office. I worked at security when they had student security. I worked in a bookstore, and I said, I still need to make a little bit more extra money. So I, because I was going to join a fraternity, and I did Phi Tau, but so I said I need to make some extra money. So and I started getting involved, and they said look for some people to help referee some elementary games and stuff like that. So I got my license and everything, and started refereeing some, elementary games, not just here. Went to Grant County and surrounding areas and did that. So that started that, and then when I graduated from Georgetown College, I got my teaching job here at in Georgetown Middle School. I was teaching 7th grade science, and I was coaching football, middle school football, and. So along with a close friend, Danny Glass, he started that. And as a matter of fact, when we started that was the first time I'm actually getting into a conference. We started what we call the Bluegrass Athletic Conference. For middle schools.
Yeah,
that was started with us. So we was one of the starting members of that conference.
Right.
And so we started that, and I got to do a little bit of that. And then Coach Varney got me to do a little coaching of freshman basketball. So I need a freshman basketball coach. And I said, I've already got some other stuff to do. He said, no, you need to do that. So I got to doing that. So then later on, George Lusby and Billy Wise,
yes, indeed,
and also Jack Wise, said, you know what, you need to do something else. I said, I've got things I'm doing. So you are getting this officiating. We need some referees. So they got me involved in that, and I went to my first BBA basketball meeting.
And that's met the Bluegrass Basketball Association.
And I got to meet, the first time getting there, I met Tommy Shuck. I met Ken Cox,
yes,
Dr. Jake Bell,
yes,
and all those individuals. And here I go. I get started, and it began. So, and I got started with that, and then later on, I got hooked up with football with Shirley Watts and George and them again, and then baseball with Harry Stevenson.
Oh, wow.
So here I am doing all 3 sports. So,
those are just fantastic names to hear, and certainly some of the greats of their time for sure. I want you to mention something about just one other name, because, and I may not be right, but as a Central Kentuckian, you mentioned Coach Varney.
Yes.
Mutt Varney.
Yes.
Now, I'm sitting today with the mayor of Georgetown.
Yes.
Did Mutt also go into a political way or not?
Yes, he did. Matter of fact, Mutt served as mayor on 3 different terms.
Okay.
Yes, he
Isn't
did.
that something?
And also George Lusby.
Yeah.
And also
yeah.
now Joe Pat Covenant.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
all Scott County teachers here
Right.
in this community.
Yeah.
So that's in itself helps out a little
Yeah,
bit.
well, that's amazing. Well, I think the commonality in that background and probably the trust of the voters is that they've seen the difference and the positive difference you made for their children,
Right.
For the young lives
Right.
of this county, and that's I know a motivation.
Well, this is what I
without
call, I've always been a public servant. I've never worked for myself.
Indeed.
I've always, as a teacher, as a coach, as an official, I work for people. And so being the mayor is just another facet of that, where I'm still working for people.
Right.
I always remember who my stakeholders are. This is not a self-appointed position. This is a job where people entrust you to do for them.
Exactly.
And it's, we provide a service. So I'm trying to provide a service for this community.
I want then, Bernie, to move on into the early refereeing days and how you began to climb the ladder. I'm wondering if you climbed the ladder faster in football, baseball, or basketball. And by that, I mean, of course, we've got to work, I would think, JV games,
Right.
a lot of freshmen, JV games. Then we're a big Bluegrass Basketball Association, varsity official, and that sort of thing. But take us through, if you don't mind, a few of the different sports, how you began to earn that reputation as somebody that, hey, this guy's really good. He's impartial. You've got that, you had and still have that kind of reputation, and we'd love to have him on our games. But that doesn't start from day one. you got to climb that ladder, don't you?
Well, and like I said, after graduating from college and getting started in high school, I started at the bottom. I started doing some freshman games and some middle school games and stuff like that. Did all that, worked my way up the ladder a little bit, and the late Bobby Flynn he took me kind of under his wings. He says, I think I can make you a pretty good official if you just listen to me.
It's a mighty good mentor, Bobby Flynn.
And he did, and he gave me some opportunities, some games. I got to work some really good games, and it got to a point where I was very dependable. I worked any game he gave me, and it got to a point, when I really got to the later years of my JV stuff. I did it like for 5 years. On my 5th year, he would tell me, he says, tell me where you want to work. I mean, he would just say, I'm going to give you all these. And I usually got most of the big games, so, Lexington Catholic games, the Bryan Station, Henry Clay games, and that, and JV. And then it just so happened that I'm sitting in George Lesby's office. And at that time, Howard Rogers was the varsity assigner. And he says, he was calling George. He says, I need 2 officials for tonight. And this we were doing 2-man varsity game, and we need to go to Casey County. I said, okay. All right. So he says, can you go work George? He said, yeah. He said, you got anybody else? He said, well, there's Burney Jenkins right here. He said, well, take him with you. So I get to go work my first varsity game. So anyway, come back a few days later, Howard called up again. He said, Bernie, this is Howard. I said, yes, sir. He says, I've got a game for you. You want to work? I said, sure. Sir, where you want me to work tonight? He says, you work in Henry Clay and Bryan Station. Varsity boys.
Oh, my gosh.
I said, okay. I'm thinking, are you sure about this? He said, yep. He said, and I'll be there.
Wow.
And I'm working with Bob Long, an ex-policeman in Fayette County. So I go work the game, and I'm scared to death. And I think at that time, James Lee was playing that time, and Turpins and Bird and all that time, and I'm out here, and Kip Hagan, and I get out there and I work the game, and so I go back in the dressing room, and Bob's telling me, he said, you did a really good job. So there's a note on the chair in the evaluation, and it says, super job, Howard.
Wow.
That's it. 2 days later, he calls up, I got 10 varsity games.
Man.
So I worked 10 varsity games, and that got me started. So I
Fantastic.
started working those games, and that was late in the 70s, and then in 1981, I got to work, working some district games, and then got to work the regional tournament game, got to work the regional final, and then I get a call from Billy Wise, and it says, Burney Jenkins, Billy Wise. I said, yes, sir. He said that, I just want to let you know that you've been selected to work the state tournament.
Wow.
I went, what? And that was
Probably about your, third year or so as a varsity referee, maybe?
it was, let's see, it was,
right
oh,
about
Lord.
that.
It was,
Yeah.
I was probably had only been officiating on that level about 7 years.
Yeah.
Because
That-
I
that's
was really,
counting, that's counting your JV games.
yes,
I'm
and
talking
everything.
about.
About 7,
Yeah.
8 years,
Yeah.
to be exact. And I got a chance
amazing.
to, yeah. And so in 1981, I get selected to work. I work my first game with a state tournament game. It's an afternoon game. It's, I believe it was PRP in Owensboro.
Whoa.
Opening game, and I worked with Tom Humble, was the one I worked with. And
It's a big time opener.
yeah, big time over
Two
there.
powerhouses.
And I'm sitting there, and I got to work and worked the next 2 rounds. And I'm not I think it was the same year, or maybe it was the next year down, where we had the incident where we ended up throwing the kid named Brown from Louisville. Finnegan was the coach, and that was the game. It was the semifinal game.
I think that was Moore High School.
Moore High School. They were playing Simon Kenton, and
That's
that
right.
was the game where going to floor Doug Hampton, and I was working the game.
Wow.
And that was the situation where the kid took a shot at the kid's head, and we both saw it, and we immediately threw him out of the game, and here we are throwing a kid out of a semifinal game, and they were, we weren't very happy about it, but even after the game, and I know that Billy came into the locker room and said, fellas, that may have been one of the toughest things you had to do. And that it's easy for you to simply just to give a regular foul call and go in, but he says, we saw it and we support you on that. I got phone calls from that. I got phone calls from the principal. Everything said, how could you do this? And I said, how do you live with yourself?
Exactly.
I said, that's a foul in the first minute of the game. That's a foul in the last minute of the game.
Exactly.
And that type of foul is always a foul that be ejected.
And what I think there, Bernie, probably is that it doesn't make you happy or gain pleasure from certain things, but there is a rule book.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
There is a rule book, and your job is to enforce those rules, isn't
Right.
it? Yeah.
And there are rules, the thing that it trips people up is this. I can tell you the rules, but that's not the premises of it. The premise of the rule book is you need to have rule knowledge, but you also need to know what is the purpose of those rules, and also is what's the intent. Not all contacts are foul. Not every time somebody grabs somebody, it's a hold. You got to look into the intent of advantage and disadvantage. Does that contact keep that player with the basketball from doing what he or she was intended to do with the basketball? If it does, it's a foul. If it doesn't, it's not. So you got to look at it that way. What is the intent?
Right.
And you got to look at it and say, okay, and is this good for the game? I mean, I don't want to end up stopping the game every 2 minutes, blowing the whistle. People don't come to the game to see that. They want to see kids play, but you got to set the perimeter. Kids will do what you allow them to do.
Yes, sir.
We actually control the game. What we allow in the game to happen will happen. If we come out and say, I'm not going to have that, and we start blowing the whistle, tight for the first 3 minutes, it's a lot easier, it's a lot better and easier to ease up than to go grab hold to it when you've been letting them kill each other for the first
Right.
half, and then second half you're going, oh, well, I think I better clean it up.
There
No,
you
if you go, set the limit. Because
yes.
they will adjust. Teams will adjust. And coaches' biggest thing is when they talk about consistency, I mean, they thinking it's a foul on this end, it's a foul on this end. No, that's not what they mean. Consistency meaning is if that play happens on that end, whatever you call, if that same play happens on that end, you should have the same result.
Right.
If you pass on that end, you pass it on this end. If you call a foul on that in the same play, that means it's got to be the same play. You know, it may be a block here where the kid slid under, but down here, if the kid may be already stationary. So those are two different plays.
Right.
But if the same play here and the same play there, then you should have the same result. That's what consistency is.
Right.
You know, not saying, well, you call that foul down here, you need to call it, well, if it's the same play, yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, what I decide to do. If I passed on it, then I'm passed on it.
Right.
So.
Well, we've established that you climbed the ladder very, very quickly as a basketball referee, and I know very shortly after that you, of course, had state championship games in the Sweet 16 as well, which we may reflect on, but I want to kind of jog over to football and getting into the football refereeing and how quickly you climbed that ladder. Because, of course, beyond basketball and the Sweet 16, then we know there are college officiating days as well for Burney Jenkins, and that's the same for football. But let's go back then and say what got you into the football scene and how you started getting out there as a member of a varsity crew.
Well, matter of fact, I got into football and baseball at the same time. Like I said, in football, Shirley Watts, you know, George had got me into that too. He says, you know, you ought to come do a little football too. So I said, sure, you know, why not? So I started getting involved in that, did some little league games and worked my way up to high school games, middle school game, then high school game, and then got to get on a crew. My first crew was with Herman Brown out of Shelbyville, Kentucky. And I got on his crew and moved the ladder. When he left, I got the crew. I got to be the referee in the crew and did some of those things. I never could beat George, his crew. His crew was always good. They always got to go to the state, you know, the state finals all the time. Never could beat him on that. So one time, a couple times, my crew got selected to work in the state finals. So I did that, and I also got involved in baseball. Harry Stevenson, I knew from football, because he also a referee football. He said, you know, you need to do some baseball too. So he got me involved in baseball. Went over to Transylvania University, and that was my first meeting with, you know, actually, and end up seeing a familiar friend of ours, Julian Julio Tackett.
Is that right?
So
yes,
he was sitting there, he's going to transit.
That's right.
So I'm sitting there and he's sitting there and we're trying to do baseball. and there we are. We're trying to do baseball together. So I got a chance to do that. Like I said, did Little League baseball. I helped establish the Little League in Scott County, the actual umpiring of it, because they never could find Little League umpires, both in junior pro and also Little League football. So I got that all helped establish here. And then just kind of moved my way up that way. And like I said, it got to going into high school football and then into baseball, moved up into college football. Like I said, Buddy Patey, who got me into the OVC. Matter of fact, George Lusby and I both got in, and I ended up working 33 years on the field in football. Got to work in 2009, the NCAA FCS National Championship game.
Wow.
In 2009, it was Villanova and Montana.
Wow.
At that game, and got a chance to do that. In 2001, Jim Diopoulos called me, and I got a chance to work some games in the NFL. So I got to work a few games in the NFL in 2001. So I got to work on that large level of that. It was quite an experience, and I got to work the NAIA national tournament, and I'm one of very few officials in the NAIA that worked both division championships. I got to work in Division I and Division II.
Kansas City, is that
I
right?
worked at that time they had in Tulsa.
Tulsa,
They
okay.
moved in different ones.
I got you.
And
Okay.
So that we first started that, I did Division II, and that they did it in Stevensville, Texas.
Okay.
They were just beginning to start that up. I got to work in Stevensville, Texas. Then the next 3 years, you had a 4-year commitment. I got to work in Boise, Idaho, a place called Nampa, Idaho, at Nazarene something in Nampa, Idaho. Got to work there. Got in those 4 years, I got to work the finals 3 out of 4 years, and then I sat out a year and got a call back from the NAIA office, and asked me. He says, "You were pretty good at the Division II. Could you come in, and we had an official that can't work, so we need a sub. Could you come in and work this year?" I said, "Sure, I'll come in and work." So I went to Tulsa Oral Roberts University, and I got a chance to work. Got to work there, and got a chance to work the finals. And I said, "Well, good. I'm glad I was able to work here." He said, "No, Mr. Jenkins, don't work that way. You're now contracted for 3 more years." So I got the chance to work 3 more years there and 2 more championships. So I think in the 8 years, I think I did, 5, national championship games in there.
Amazing memories.
And baseball, I did a bunch of state finals. And basketball, I did 7 state tournaments and 5 finals.
Wow. 7 Sweet 16s and 5 times in the state championship game. Are there some special games here or there, whether it be, the first when you did this or the first when you did that, or in any situations that you recall when you reflect on the career and think, "Oh my gosh, what a game. I was right out there in front of 20,000 or whatever, and what a heck of a game."
Like I said, I got to work the games. Like I said, a couple of them, but probably the most memorable one was the PRP and
Wayne County?
No,
I'm sorry.
PRP and Pulaski County.
Okay.
That was a game
Gotcha.
where they had a real issue that morning in the Hazard game.
Yes. You're so right.
And I ended up working that game. But people ask me if you had you work football, basketball, baseball. What sport or what event that meant the most to me? I tell people all the time that working the state tournament is probably the most memorable and for me big time event, because that catapulted me into other things. People see me in that venue open up a lot of doors for me and others, and not just in basketball, but also football and baseball. And and just to be able to do it. And also, I work football and basketball and baseball in the OVC too. Yeah. And got to work, in the championship games in those too.
Right.
So at one time, I was doing all 3 in the OVC. And I remember the commissioner telling me, says, that's what happens when you're that good, because you get to work all those things. And so, but working the state tournament probably is for me the most, the big thing. So
our state tournament is so unique.
Oh, it is.
And I think revered across the country.
It is that.
Do you have some officiating friends, maybe even other states, who are aware of just how special our state basketball tournament is?
I tell them all the time. I got friends that's in Nashville, Tennessee, and in Boise, Idaho, and Michigan, you name it, Washington. I got them all over. And I tell them, I said, look, when you ever get a chance, come visit Kentucky, come see me around March. I got tickets, I got seats at the state tournament, the greatest show in hoops.
That's right.
And I said, you can come and you can watch a tournament. I said, you go watch these other tournaments and these classes. Nothing wrong with that, but you have one true champion.
That's
They
exactly
can say,
right.
he's it. He's king of the hill, or she's king of the.
That's
she's
exactly
queen of the prom.
That's right.
Because they're the champion, and nobody else can say that. Yeah. They're the champion for the Kentucky High School Athletics Association boys and girls basketball.
Yeah. Very special.
And out of how many schools we have, here we are.
That's right.
So
That's right. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Let me throw just a couple of names at you here and there that Heck, I remember working my games now and then. Did you ever work with Scoot Brown?
Absolutely. He was one of my mentors because when I graduated from Georgetown College, that summer, I was going to graduate school at UK. I got a job placement to work in Parks and Rec and worked for Scoot Brown. He was my supervisor. I was assistant district supervisor for District 3 for Fayette County Parks and Rec.
Did he qualify as a first-rate character?
Oh, I'll tell you what, he taught me a lot. I learned a lot from things, what to do and what not to do from him.
That sounds good.
Boy, and I tell you what, everybody knew him. And I said to myself, you know what? I want to be that kind of official,
That's cool.
or that kind of person that when he walked into a place, he could convince you that water, which is clear, is blue. He could convince you of that, and everybody think, and nobody said a word. Yeah, I guess so.
There we go.
And when he made a call, when he did something, people like, okay, it's good, okay. And that's what we call believability. Having that, where, you have that credibility. He shows up and tells you that, okay,
Yes,
it is what it is.
That's right.
And nobody really says anything. So.
Well, Bernie, you always gave of your time in so many different settings. I'm going to mention another name too. Certainly my brother David and I and Lewis Stout.
Right.
We started the Kentucky AAU Basketball Association right after, on the heels of when the KHSAA said we can have team basketball in the summers.
Right.
And our first ever boys 17 under state basketball tournament, we played it at Madison Central.
Right.
And I remember being on the microphone that morning. I said, and your officials are Central Kentucky's finest.
Right.
Donnie Byers and Burney Jenkins.
Right.
Wow. And you gave a lot of time to help grow that AAU program, which was a real springboard for so many high school basketball teams to come back the next season.
Absolutely.
And have great years. So, of course, with David and I, our partner was Lewis Stout. Tell me about Lewis Stout in your life.
There was many people that I call true mentors in my life.
Yes, sir.
Billy was one, your dad was another one, Jack Wise, and Lewis Stout. Lewis probably more so, because, Lewis, he always looking out for my best interest. And he always says, there's lot of dangers that you don't see. And he always tried to help me understand that you don't put yourself out there where you can get your head cut off. Be smart. Remember that, silence cannot be misquoted. That, don't say something that's going to come back to bite you. It may not bite you today, but it'll eventually bite you. And he just provided me with a lot of opportunities and a lot of guidance. And that, like I said, he took me on his wing and, got me involved in men's softball, which I went and said, I don't know. And we used to have these teams, Shilto Classic, the Fayette County Invitational. There were teams from, Prairieville, Bowling Green, Winchester, Georgetown had a team. And these were men, and they played they fast with softball. And I still think that is a great game to watch that. Just and the skill set involved with that.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Billy Wise played in that, a little bit of that. Jack played in that, and also Shirley.
Shirley Watts.
Yeah, Shirley Watts and all them. I mean, not Shirley Watts, but
I'm sorry.
Who was his name? He lived here in Georgetown, but he also helped start a team here with them, and they started that, and a lot of good pitchers. And they had that different types of pitchers. They had the old drop ball, curve, rise ball, and I'm going. I never seen a ball started at your waistline, and by the time you end up swinging it's up by your ears, you're going, whoa.
Another thing you've done so much, Bernie, is giving your time back to the development of our younger officials. You might say a little something about you observing the change from the 2-man to the 3-man basketball crew, but also something about the clinics that you offer. Now the fact that you are that Lewis Stout, Billy Wise, Jack Wise mentor to so many of our young officials, and maybe some of the advice you give to young officials. I've thrown a lot at you there, but 2-man, 3-man crew, clinics, working with young folks coming up into the profession?
Well, here's the thing that you try to get young people to understand is this: patience. And that's a hard thing for people to have. Because everybody wants to start at the penthouse and stay at the penthouse.
Yes, sir.
But you got to come to the basement. You got to start at the bottom, work your way up, because while you're working your way up, things are going to happen to you. You may have some devastating things happen to you in officiating. You may make calls that will absolutely cost a team a game. You may make bad judgment. And you learn from those mistakes. Because from learning from those mistakes enable you to actually be better at it when you get there. When you get to that top level, you want to stay there because you have earned that right to be there. So go to clinics. We started this stuff with 2-man. And then the game got to a point where 2-man was tough to keep up with. So now that, the college started instituting the 3-man, and the high schools want to make sure when kids transition into college, going from 2-man to 3-man didn't make sense. They get used to 3-man officiating, and those kids can get used to it, and coaches can get used to it. So they start going to 3-man and everything, and that changed some things. That offers some opportunities for young people to get in, but also it kept some of the veterans in the game because it got to a point where 2-man running 84 by 50 feet or 90 by 50 feet was tough.
Yes.
And you had to be really in good shape. But offering that 3-man in, it offered another opportunity for us to get better, to cover the game. And when we started this 3-man stuff, especially in college, it was difficult. It was very complicated.
Whose whistle should it be, maybe? Or
And you rotate it. When the first play we started out, you went opposite of the person who called it. So you had to figure out where you're going, and then you rotate it here. I got a chance to work with Burl Crowd.
Wow.
And
great SEC great, right?
Yeah, Don Rutledge. Then also there's a lot of other them.
Maybe John Clockerty.
New John Clockerty, Galvan. And Sonny
names.
Holmes. And those, Jack Wise, just those people, you're going, whoa. And learn the game. And when it went back down to high school, that opened up. So, training is a big thing. That's what we need to train people. And that's why you see more people going to these camps, is because that's where you go. You're going to have to invest.
Yes.
And going to camps is an investment. You want to be good at this craft, you got to invest in your profession. You got to pay it back to get there. And not just go in, people going to, we're going to come find you. No, those days ain't going to work anymore.
Yeah.
You got to go out and show an interest that you want to be there and do this.
Yeah.
So,
Bernie, I think about the fact that you were on both sides. You coached, and also obviously all the officiating that we're talking about. What about kind of that coach to, or I should say referee to coach relationship during the games and that kind of thing? I think that's some valuable advice for our young referees as well. But how did you kind of manage that game? Show respect for the coach, but demand respect for yourself as well. Tell us a little bit about that kind of deal.
Well, in oftentimes one of the biggest things that people, especially coming up, is the inability to communicate with players, with fans, with coaches, and so on. So I use this adage all the time. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means you're supposed to listen is twice as much as you talk. So in other words, when you come to a game, don't take it for granted. Understand that you're not there. They're not there to see you. You are there to be able to administer the game to where you want to make sure that both teams will be able an opportunity to compete. It's not your job to go for win-loss. It's not my job to go see if your team will win. My job is to make sure it's equal enough you have be able to compete. and that when you're having coaches, you have that respect for them. You don't come in and the first thing coach want to say something, the first thing most officials do is try to defend themselves. I always ask this question here. It says, yes, coach, what's the issue? Well, Bernie, let them say what it is. That's okay. I hear you. Move on. And admit that when you make a mistake, admit it. Don't be trying to cover it up. Everybody knows you missed it. I can remember a play where Bruce Pearl, when he was at Tennessee, and I'm working, and I missed it was terrible. It was the worst call in the history of basketball. It's a block charge call, and I called a I don't know what it was. It wasn't very good. So, I called a charge. It was probably a block. But anyway, so I'm coming up the end. Before I come, I'm on the end line, and Coach Pearl is out there stomping, Bernie. So I come off there, and he's coming. I said, Coach Pearl, you can talk to me about anything about that block charge call I missed down there. So what do you want to talk about?
That's right. Disarming.
He just kind of went,
Yep.
you're making this very hard for me to do this. See, he slicked at me and said, Bernie. And I said, okay.
Yeah.
But he knew, and
Sure.
he says, and he came by, he says, that takes a lot. Mm-hmm. He said, but don't miss another one. I said, okay, got it.
Yeah.
But the fact
And I think that helps you gain respect from the coach,
absolutely,
too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And another thing is, give the impression that that's where you want to be. That you don't. I go work a high school game. For me, that's the best place I want to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a college game tomorrow night. Okay, big deal. But tonight I'm working Henry Clay in Bryan Station.
That's right.
That's the most important game for me right now.
Absolutely.
And Coach Tim Riley, I used to work his games, and you know what? And matter of fact, he had such respect for me that, his son got into officiating, and he was trying to find an association to come to. And I was doing the 8th at the time. He says, you need to go and work for Bernie because you'll learn a lot more. And the thing about it, and the most biggest compliment he gave me was that you look like you were having such fun being out there.
That's great.
And that when you showed up,
Right.
you were smiling, you were working the game, you were enjoying.
And I think that calms everybody.
Yeah,
it calms the competitors. It calms the coaches.
Yeah. It's okay. Everybody thinks that you're out there for a death sentence.
Yeah.
You can smile. I don't want you to break out into laughter.
Right.
But it's okay to smile. Mm-hmm. It's okay to actually be able to, have a conversation where it's a pleasant.
Yeah.
Coach said something funny to me. I said, what? I'll say something funny to a coach. I remember one night, one coach was getting on me about something, and so what I did was, during timeout, went over and sat down on his bench. He comes down and he says, what are you doing? I said, I figured you want to referee all night. I figured I was going to try my hand at coaching a little bit. He kind of smiled. He said, you wouldn't be very good at it. I said, no, you're right. And you're not going to be very good at refereeing. Trust me. He kind of laughed and kind of hit me on the butt. We went on about it. But those are the type of things you do. And and like I said, being honest with coaches, when you're missing one, but you can't miss the next one, that can't be your excuse all the time.
For sure.
But you keep working at it and work at it. Look at films of yourself. Go get people to come watch you work and say, what do you think? And tell them and be able to take constructive criticism.
Yes.
Don't be so defensive all the time. Oh, well, I didn't miss a call. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. And it's all judgment.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
be open to having people come and say, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you mentioned Coach Tim Riley, a great state championship coach in our state. And with us sitting in the mayor's office here in Georgetown, I have to reflect on another of my good friends and what he must have meant to this community and making this Scott County High School seen as such a state championship kind of school. With Billy Hicks, Coach Billy Hicks coming to Scott County High School, tell me a little bit about the magic he worked there and maybe how the whole town and community just got behind that red heat of the Scott County Cardinals with Coach Billy Hicks.
Now, Coach Hicks and I had a relationship prior to him coming to Scott County, and that was his days at Corbin.
Okay.
I used to go work some games. Of course, when I was at the BBA, Coach Hicks would have his Cumberland Fall Classic and so on, and he would say he wanted some officials to come down. He would ask our signer says, "Can you send me some officials?" So I got a chance to go work down there and got to work a game of him, and Billy had that snarl and everything, and cut up and everything, and give you that look like, really, you know. So I can remember the first time I ever had him, he was come screaming about something, and I said, he comes by and he was saying something. I said, "Coach Hicks," I said, "Jesus wouldn't like that way you're acting right now." He kind of stopped. He said, "What?" I said, "Jesus would not act like where you're acting right about now." He said, "Burney, we're from all these fans and so on." I said, yeah, but Jesus still wouldn't like that." He kind of looked at me, had that look in his face. And so I go up and he comes back, he says, "I have never heard such." And that started that relationship with us. And after that, every year when I had the tournament, he would always said, "I want him to come work my tournament." And I worked that tournament. So when he came to Scott County, Billy was a competitor.
Yes.
And one thing that and you can say anything about Billy, in all the years I've been on the sidelines, both at Corbin or here, he never used profane language
It's quite a compliment.
at any given time.
Yes, sir.
He may not agree with you. He may get red in the face, fuss you. And he's remind me a little bit of Matt Whitaker. Matt Whitaker did, he was screaming out, but Mac never used profane language.
Mac Whitaker, the great Harrison County High School baseball coach.
Yeah, and never did, and neither did Coach Hicks. He was, and that shows respect of him as a person that I don't have to be that way. I don't have to use profane language to get my point across. I can get after you,
Yes.
but I can. That shows you respect as a human being. Because when you start using profane language to people, that's degrading. So now you're not looking at that person as an official. You're now getting personal. And I don't have no problem. You can say, "Burney, you're the worst official I've ever seen in my life." Okay, thank you very much. But I'm here all week. But versus when you start using profane language, now you're attacking me.
Right.
And that's when I draw the line.
Right.
You can talk about my fishing, but when you personally attack me, my character, my ethics, or what I believe in, that stops the line. So, but Billy brought that with him, and he got people because he was such a competitor. He went out and he was a showman. He went out and he made an invested interest in this community. He immediately got out in this community. He wouldn't just go get in the gym. That was all the time you saw him. He was out in the community. He was an avid fisherman. He loved to fish.
Yes.
He would go get people to go fishing with him, and get people. He would get people that liked the same things he kind of liked doing, had the same content. You look like his assistant, like Tim Glenn. He's another person that didn't use profane language. These are good Christian people who was going to set an example. And Billy set an example.
Yes.
He set an example about being a good Christian person, and that this is the way we operate. And people saw that in him. And he would go in and get competitive, and he would fight for his kids, day in, day out, and they knew he always had their back. And when he started bringing that championship back in, Mutt kind of got it started. And then later when Billy got here, it continued. And then all of a sudden now it became, everybody didn't want to play Scott County.
That's right.
Everybody wanted, the 8th region, they wanted to get Scott. They were glad when Scott got out of there.
Yeah, for
they
sure.
said, "Whoa, got them out," because they always was in the thick of things. They didn't know them. So.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And of course, Billy, the winningest coach of all time in the state of Kentucky. Another thing we think about sacrifices, and I'm thinking about some of these OVC trips and that sort of thing. You were driving, probably right. And getting back in at 2, 3, and 4 in the morning, and being on the job the next day. Is that right?
Yeah. Matter of fact, there's many times I'm going to I go referee a basketball game at Murray State University, and it was one of those times they had the ESPN Midnight Madness, where everybody wore pajamas. They threw it up at 12 o'clock, And 12:01 is coming down. So I said, that's the only time it took 2 days to play a basketball game. And I'm working that game, and I'm coming back on that little windy road. And I got pulled over by a state trooper. And this is about 1:30 and 2:30 in the morning. And I'm going, oh, Lord. And he says, you know why I stopped you? I said, yeah, probably because I was probably speeding. He said, yeah, you were going pretty fast. He says, where you been? I said, well, I'm just coming back from Murray State. He said, Murray State? What are you doing out in Murray State? I said, I refereed that basketball game down at ESPN Midnight Madness game. He said, yeah. Who were they playing? I said, we're playing Austin Peay State University. Well, how'd it go? I said, it was a titanic struggle, but we won by 2. but those type of things. But, and, you know, I can remember being at the airport in Atlanta. And flying in from a game, and I'm sitting there on the bench and had a sign that says, my flight is in Lexington is at 6:30 in the morning. Please don't let me miss it. And I'm landing with a sign up there and I'm landing in the airport waiting to get out, and then somebody came by, hey bud, and I get up and I roll. And I get there, coming in on 2 wheels, and George loves looking at me. He says, you had a game last night? Yeah, I'm coming in, and here I am running into the gymnasium. I blow my whistle. I say, kids, when I blow the whistle, take the balls out, and I blow the whistle again, put them back up. So 8 o'clock in the morning. So getting there at 7, got there at 7:45 for 8 o'clock start. Yeah. Oh, I've done that many times. Yes, I said, oh, goodness gracious. But
well, I think, Burney, as we've talked about this and all the lives you've touched, and really think about all the young people that have come through seeing you as Mr. Jenkins, Coach Jenkins, their teacher and that sort of thing. It came this time where you made what I would have to call an out-of-the-box decision and decided that you were going to run for mayor of the city of Georgetown. And I think sometimes the life well lived is rewarded. And that's how I viewed it. When I heard that you were running for mayor, that's how I looked at it. I said, I think a life well lived, he's liable to just win that thing because he's been so good to so many people over the years. Tell us just a little bit about the run for mayor as we move towards wrapping up. Now that you're in this position and how you're impacting the community, continuing to give back as you always have.
Well, like I said, in 2022, at that time I had some devastating news with my wife, Trina, who she and I had been together for 30-some years, and we went to the doctor's office on July the 5th in 2022, and she was diagnosed with bilateral carcinoma cancer. It's cancer bile duct of the liver, one of the rarest form of cancer. There was no treatment. There was no treatment that was going to cure it. We was on the clock. They give like a 30-month clock. God. So, I was in the midst of my campaigning. So when I came down, I said, honey, you tell me. If you don't want me to do this, I won't do this. And I said, because you're going to have a long road ahead of you on this. And she says, no. She said, you have made a decision to do this, and a lot of people are depending on you. And, that meant a lot to me because she's always the one to have my back. But the fact of the matter is that, she saw something in me. I said, I don't think I can win this thing because I was going against a former student of mine I had. He had been on city council for years, well known in this community, well established. And I have never done like this, done know one thing about running a campaign, had a few people to help me. I said, well, one thing is the only way I'm gonna win is go door to door. And I said, I'm not gonna promise you anything. I said, well, I'll promise you that I'll do what I can. I'll work as hard as I can to do what's best for people. So that being said, I end up running, like I said, and on November the 8th of 2022, I was elected mayor, first African-American mayor in the history of this city. And not only that, end up winning the largest margin in the history, won every precinct, every facet of that. And I'm thinking, but if you go back and look at Varney and you look at Lusby, teachers have a way because they're public servants. It's not like, I've been at this for almost 50 years. So it's not like something I just here I am. This is something, and people who are now adults knew me and said, well, we're voting for you, we're gonna come back. I had some kids that were in college said, well, I'm coming back just to vote or sitting in. But, like everything else in officiating, I want to give back. I want to continue to serve this community. That's what I want to do, to continue to serve this community. And one thing I learned, you're not gonna always gonna make people happy. I learned that as a teacher, I learned that as a coach, I learned as an official. But as a teacher, I knew everybody was not gonna teach everybody. But if every day that I was in the classroom, one child learned something, that to me was worth more. As mayor, if I can change one person's life per day, if I can make their life a little bit better, I've done great. Yes. Because you talk about 365 lives you change, and those lives are how they connect with other lives. You changes people's lives. And that's what you do. I'm in the business of service. And, you're restricted on how you do that, but, my heart's in the right place. It's, if you were to pick your folder up and look under there, right there, you look on there, right there, my staff gave me that. This is what my motto was: people first, every decision, every day. And you put people first, not yourself. The Bible tells you that you should always be last. So you put people first, because what he did, he always put people first. That's right. He put himself last, and that was a model that he wanted all of us to follow. That, those that are going to be last will basically be first. But those who always think they're going to be first will probably be last. Because you got to go be a servant, have a servant heart. You got to go wash feet when you don't want to wash somebody's feet. You got to go and pick it. And what has helped me the most in this job is it took me a few years to learn this job. But, guys, I tell you, the biggest thing that makes me sweat up and is that, my wife, she said, I knew he was going to win. I lost her a year ago of Christmas, and I miss her every day. But when you do little things, everybody thinks you go out and do big things. It's the little thing that makes the biggest impact. Like somebody can't get, had a situation where a person's electricity was turned off. They was moving into a place and they had turned the previous owner had it turned off. And it was the first time this person was getting her kids back, who was trying on recovery. And she was getting her first actual apartment and everything. And she's going to this house and there's no electric. A good friend of mine called and says, well, can you do something? So I called KU. I said, hey, here's the deal. Can you help out? They can't turn it. Little of that. Or somebody called and said, Mayor, my streets are covered. Yeah, we'll get to it. Right. And doing those things, answering people's calls. I'm out in the community. I don't sit in this office often. Yes. I'm out in the community. My thing is I'm the people's mayor, which means you get out and people see you. They see me at Kroger's. They see me at Walmart. They see me at ball games. I go to most every event you can think of. I'm there because, the only way I know what people need is to hear them face to face tell me, hey, Mayor, what are you going to do about this? I don't like this idea. So there you go. So,
well, that's very, very powerful, Bernie. And we just thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Yes. It's been so enjoyable to go back and reminisce together for sure.
I appreciate you too, because you all the one that helped catapult me to that. You all gave me a platform and an opportunity, because those AAU days, like I said, got me more recognition. Not just in Central Kentucky, but around the state of Kentucky.
True. That is right.
I met, Clay County's
you
coach.
Better believe it, Bobby Key.
Both Bobby Key.
You better know it.
And I had such great respect for him, but he also had a great respect for me.
Yes.
He always loved seeing me work. And I had a game where it's a tough play in the state tournament. Where a pin is turning and they pick his pocket and go the other way with it and score.
Yeah.
It's going to go ahead, score. And I'm looking, oh, he's going to go crazy. He looks at me and said, Burney, we need to figure out how we better handle the basketball.
Here we go.
He would never say, you should have called a foul, so. No, and that's just the way he was.
Yeah, boy, I admire Bobby Keith. Is about the best that ever was.
And he was another that didn't use profane language.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah.
He was another one of those.
Yeah.
He never, he got mad, but he never used
Yeah.
language. There's a lot of them that didn't
Yes,
do that.
indeed.
And those people, to me, were just good Christian people. When I used to go to Clay County and so on, I just go in and I said, well, can I speak to God? He says, no, but Bobby Keith's here. So
I love it. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you all again for coming
indeed.
over and spending this time.
For sure,
I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
It's been great. Well, this is Randy Mills once again for Sports History Now, and today we've recounted the servant life of Burney Jenkins, Kentucky's premier official right down the line, football, baseball, basketball. He's had all the big games, and now the mayor of Georgetown. Thank you so very much, Burney. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And before we close today's show, a big thank you to another of our Sports History Now supporters, Bob Roberts Insurance. The support of friends like Bob and his family help us continue to bring sports history alive, one story at a time.